So this was quite the project. I didn't do an actual build video because there were just a lot of things that kept going wrong, and it was just taking so long, and so I just ended up, eventually once I got it all put together, I'll show it to you and I'll tell you guys about it. So this started as that SKD AK47. It was being sold on Amazon for a little bit under the brand Veramo. It's actually an older model, and but it performed pretty well. You know, it'd do about 250 FPS. He was shipping it with an 11.1 volt. So people who got it, it was a pretty good deal. It was sold for around $100. So I had an extra one of these around, and I wanted to make a BullPup style AK-47. I didn't want to use one of my nicer AK-47s just because I knew that I'd probably be cutting and modifying it enough that it couldn't, you know, be returned to normal. So I used this one instead. Downside to that, of course, is all the pieces that I printed didn't really fit. So I had to do adjustments to those pieces, some prior to printing them, some after printing, and then go ahead and figure out how to put it all together. So it ended up working out. Of course, there were hiccups along the way. I was hoping to be able to reuse the same wiring that was in there so that I could have still semi-automatic and priming, but because I had to rewire a trigger to the front here, that caused some issues, and even though I did it exactly like it was wired into the first switch, it didn't work out, and that type of stuff happens often, and even though I tried again a different way, it still didn't work out. So, you know, that's just kind of how things go when you're building these. You got to be able to adjust, modify on the go. So instead, you know, we still have obviously on, off, and automatic. So our on-off switch is still here, and it's automatic, of course, or not on, right? So instead of a trigger, this actually is a trigger switch. It's just a little button. I tried multiple ways of having an actual trigger on there, but they just weren't working out right. And so I figured, you know what, you've got this little button here that you get to use as the trigger. It's still got your grip, your trigger guard. I thought, hey, that'll be good the way it is. If you remember with this AK, the battery actually went in right here, kind of where this grip is. So that wasn't going to work. Initially, I thought about putting a battery box on, but then I'm like, that's just going to make this really big and bulky. It's already going to be a big, long blaster. I don't want to do that. So instead, I relocated it to the front here inside this grip. So you see that this has a little cap. This is threaded. That threads off. And we got a little 11.1 volt. Those little kind of rectangle style ones, or the small cylinder ones, will fit in there. Otherwise, just added, you know, this whole front piece here because I needed a grip out in front to kind of balance it. You know, ideally, it'd probably be even better to have it further out. But because the standard barrel ended right here, I didn't really want to go further out. I didn't have any extra metal barrels around, and I didn't want to go further out if I didn't have those. So instead, this was as far out as I thought I should go. Now, even though this is nice and wide and should not be performing any restrictions on the barrel at all, there should be no barrel drag because there's, you know, plenty of room in here. It still seems to be slowed down, and you'll see that when we do the FPS test. And I'm not entirely sure why. And because of how difficult this was to put together and how many screws are involved, I'm going to be happy with 200 FPS. So that's what happened there. Back here, obviously, you can see that we don't have our trigger there anymore, right? So we still have our spot for our mag, of course, right? So your mag's still going to go in the standard spot. The trigger was back here, and it's now being covered kind of by that BullPup style stock there. Had to add, again, a couple pieces that were kind of different to kind of just customize, hold things together better. This piece that drops down like this, I had to raise this up a little bit. I added these pieces right here to just give it more integrity. And that's how it ended up working out. And really the way I built this whole thing out to mount that to was all, you know, in addition to what the kit had. So there's a couple different files on Thingiverse. Really the only one that worked, I guess, or that I used was this piece actually did fit really close to perfect. Not exactly, but pretty close. Obviously this grip piece I reused, you know, with the trigger guard. This was printed. but then all the other pieces printed to mount this. This piece here was all just custom, you know, built off what I thought would work, printed off of that. So overall, I think it turned out really good. I'm pretty happy with it. The only other thing that bothers me is a little rivet nut that was inside here came loose, so you can hear it shaking around, and that kind of drives me crazy. But again, this thing is put together so solid now, that's just how it's going to be. I'm not going to worry about that. But yeah, I definitely like the looks of it. It's still very fun, very cool. I'd say, you know, better than the other BullPups I've built before. Better than the Scar one, because we do have the actual trigger up here instead of using a system with levers kind of to push the original trigger. So I like it a lot. Let me know what you guys think. That was kind of a long video, but since I didn't do a build process video, I just really wanted to discuss everything I did in this video instead. So check back. Of course, we're going to do a demonstration. We're going to FPS test. I kind of already told you. It's about 200 FPS. But again, just happy that it's working well, and definitely happy with the looks of it, how it turned out. You know, some of these pieces I had to add I thought were great little places to incorporate my logo anyway, so I don't mind that one bit. All right, comments or questions, post them below. Of course, let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, share my channel with your friends, and participate in those monthly giveaways.